everyone, welcome back. Today I am going to dive right into the topic, which is dairy animals on the homestead. Now, I purposefully made this its own video because this is a lot of information. So we're going to compare dairy cows, dairy goats, and dairy sheep, and then talk about why we chose dairy sheep for our homestead. We only have dairy sheep, so the pictures that you see in my video have been given to me by some Instagram friends to use specifically for this video, and I want to thank them so much. The goats are from Bethany, Sutton, from Sutton Family Homestead, and the cow is from Therese at the House on the Hill Homestead. You can find both of them on Instagram, or you can also find the House on the Hill Homestead on YouTube. So I just want to thank those ladies for being so kind to help me out with my video. Cows are probably the most common dairy animal on a homestead, but I would say that goats are probably a really close second to that. And then dairy sheep are going to be much more rare, at least in the US, but I believe that they are becoming more popular. And I really think that we're going to start seeing more homesteads and farms that have dairy sheep. All dairy animals have a few things in common. The first thing in common is that they will not give milk unless they have given birth. The second thing is that milk production is going to vary greatly between individuals in that species, depending on their genetics, depending on how many times they have gone through lactation. Is it the beginning or the middle or the end of their lactation cycle? All of those things are going to really be a big factor in the quantity and quality of milk that you're getting. We're going to start by talking about dairy cows. Most homesteaders are probably looking for more of like a Jersey, Guernsey, brown Swiss, something like that, where they might give a little bit less milk, but definitely better cream and possibly better temperament. It's just going to vary really greatly between individual cows. And if you have a dairy cow, you're probably looking easily at upwards of 3 gallons of milk a day, probably closer to 5 gallons a day. And then if you have a really great producer in her prime, it could definitely be upwards of 6 gallons of milk a day. Now that is a ton of milk to deal with, which could actually be a downfall for a family dairy animal. Having to deal with 6 gallons of milk every day when you're milking 7 days a week for months on end is just an insane quantity, especially when you're first starting out. But on the other hand, if you're interested in making cheeses, you would definitely want to have a large quantity of milk. Cows also give amazing cream. Again, it will vary between individual cows, but you're going to get a nice, thick, beautiful cream line on the top of your milk where it separates naturally. And you're going to be able to separate that off very easily to make homemade butter or cream cheese or sour cream. And for homesteaders, that cream is gold. And that is a huge perk of having a dairy cow. But on the other hand, cows are very large animals. They're going to require more of everything. More space in a barn, more pasture, more feed, more hay, just all of it in general. But if it's something that you are interested in, it is definitely worth all of that to get your own dairy cow. The next thing that you really need to think about is breeding. Like I said, you're not going to get milk without them giving birth, and the only way they're going to give birth is to get bred. So you're going to have to either have access to a bull where you're keeping it on your property, or being able to loan it or take your cow to someone else's farm to get bred, or to be able to access the AI process. Both of those could be expensive, and dairy cows are kind of notorious for being hard to get bred. So that's something else to keep in the back of your mind. Now, when we talk about dairy goats, obviously they're going to be much smaller than a cow. They should be easier to handle just because they're smaller, but I'm sure that we've all heard that saying that if your fence won't hold water, it won't hold a goat. They are kind of notorious for being a little mischievous and either getting out of the fence or getting stuck in the fence. Now, with a dairy goat, you're probably looking at closer to a half gallon of milk a day instead of that 5 gallons a day like a cow. So it's a much more manageable amount. Unlike a cow, goat's milk is naturally homogenized. So you're not going to be getting any cream unless you run a cream separator. That's very common, but that is just one more step, one more expense that you're gonna have if you go with a dairy goat. You're going to have a plan in place for breeding, whether you have a billy goat, or I assume that you can also AI goats, but I do not have any knowledge of that process. The biggest factor in having a dairy goat is going to be the taste of the milk. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that they can't tell a difference in the taste or that they like the taste of it, but I am going to recommend that if you're considering getting dairy goats, that you taste fresh goat's milk from more than one source if you're able to make sure that that is something that your family is going to enjoy. Our family does not enjoy the taste of goat's milk, so we just knew right away that that was not going to work for us at all. But I think I could look at baby goats all day long. That brings us to dairy sheep. So a dairy cow, just in the back of my mind, I just knew that a dairy cow probably wasn't the right fit. I knew we didn't really care for the taste of goat's milk, but I just didn't want to give up on this dream of doing home dairy. So I kept searching, just trying to find more information, and somehow, I don't even remember now, I came across dairy sheep. And I was like, dairy sheep? I didn't even know that was a thing. So I did some more research into it and found out that it is a real thing. I've really only known about dairy sheep for 2 years, maybe not even that long. But immediately, I knew I wanted to find out everything I could. I was trying to find anybody who lived even remotely close to where we are so that I could visit their farm and see what it was all about. And there was one in southern Missouri, which is fairly close to us. When I looked them up, it also happened that they welcome visitors to their farm, and they were having a fiber festival coming up because they actually raise fiber sheep as well. So my dad and my 2 daughters and I drove down to their farm. It wound up being like a 7-hour drive, and I drove home without even tasting it because I wanted all of us to do this first taste test together. I felt a little bit crazy, I'm not gonna lie, but it was so worth going down there. Not only did we learn that we really like the taste of sheep's milk, while we were there, I met Eliza from Green Dirt Farm. So I got this amazing contact out of it also. Once we figured out that we do like the taste of sheep's milk, I was pretty determined to make this happen. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of convincing Dwayne that this was a good idea. As I was doing my research, I realized dairy sheep check a lot of boxes for us. Number one, we've been raising sheep for almost 15 years, and we have all of this knowledge already. So we're one step ahead. The second thing is that we already have access to rams, and we're familiar with the AI process for sheep, which is very different from the AI process with cows. But we already have that knowledge as well. So there's another step ahead for us. Now you might be thinking, well, don't you want a dairy ram? If you are wanting replacement ewe lambs to add back into your milk herd, you would definitely want dairy genetics to breed. These girls have already been bred to a dairy ram, and I'm hoping that when they lamb, they have ewe lambs that I can keep back and add to the milk herd. Going forward, we're going to breed them to our club lamb rams, which is more of a meat breed, because the future lambs are either going to be used for meat or just to market. The third thing is that all of our facilities are already set up for sheep. Our barns, our fencing, all of the equipment we have, the feed that we have, the hay, everything we have is already specifically for sheep. So we might have to do a little bit of rearranging, but it's not going to be changing those major structures or redoing anything like if we were adding a different species. So there we're one more step ahead. It is really important to me that our kids are involved in helping take care of the sheep and milking, and they're already familiar with handling sheep. They show sheep at the fair, and I think they will be much more comfortable just right off the bat with the sheep than if we were adding in a cow or even goats. It would just be one more learning curve to add in. So I think that these girls are just going to be a natural fit for our family. The next reason that we chose these is specifically because I know that sheep give less milk than cows. When I'm learning something new, I tend to get in over my head. And I knew that having a dairy cow, I was going to have gallons and gallons of milk to deal with. And if I wasn't able to keep up with it or felt like I wasn't doing a good job, it was just going to be a point of stress for me. So knowing that for my girls, I would get maybe a half gallon from each of them, so a gallon of milk a day. If we can't drink that much, it's going to be so easy for us to turn that into yogurt, which my family loves. And I guarantee that we are going to be able to use up all of the milk that these two girls give us this year. And I'm hoping that I'm not just going to feel completely overwhelmed as I'm learning how to milk and how to handle the milk and all of that. Now, very similar to goat's milk, sheep's milk is more naturally homogenized. So I'm thinking that when I'm ready to start making butter and sour cream and things like that, I'm going to need a cream separator for my girls also. And truthfully, having one is just going to allow me to get even more cream from the milk and have more to work with. I think if I can learn the milking part, the rest of it is going to come fairly easily to me. I hope that you guys have enjoyed watching this video, and I hope that you have maybe learned something or maybe thought about dairy animals on your homestead in a little bit of a different way. You just want to make your homestead yours. If you do, it's going to be so much more enjoyable for you. As always, if you have questions or specific things that you would like to hear me talk about, please leave me a comment below and let me know what you guys are interested in. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.